Wasn't planning on doing a video, but two sort of interesting wines. One I've tasted a million times, but different this time. And then this one I think I've had before, but a really long time ago. So this is, you can't really read the label, but Chateau Mango, and this is their Todeschini Distique 2, Saint-Emilion Grand Cru. And they don't actually put a vintage on it, but this is 2018. And it's a slightly unusual blend for a Saint-Emilion Ripe Bank. It is, well, 40% Cab Franc, 40% Merlot. Nothing weird about that. But they had 20% Cab Sauv. And that is unique because on the Ripe Bank, they typically will never really add Cab Sauv. Cab Sauv's always left bank. They typically just go Merlot, Cab Franc. And if there's other varietals, it's very minor, not a big 20% hunk of Cab Sauv. And I'm not sure that I would know that it's in there, except that there is a fair amount of tannic grip here on the palate. But this is a really good wine. I don't know exactly the price. I want to say anywhere from 35 to 50, but pretty sure I got it less than that, or in the 30s. But really good, really viscous, and it's showing more of the dark fruit character than anything else, or any vegetal component of, like, say, a Cab Franc that could show. Paired really well with my steak. There's so much tannin, and it's slightly astringent, but it just means that this wine needs time. This time needs a really long decanter. Really, this wine needs like 3 more years before you're even touching it. But it's really good. It is really well made, really well structured, more along the lines of a full body, really long length. All the dark things, blackberry, cassis, without a doubt, graphite, cedar, it's all there. Mostly a lot of graphite for sure. It's excellent though. I would definitely want 1 or 2 more of either wines like this or this. I was watching a video I did previously, the Chateau Meilly, and it was a Pomerol, and I was head over tails for it, and I looked up that one. I think that one's just sub 40. So I don't know what this one costs, but I don't think they have any more of the 2018 vintage. So really, I guess all this to say that I do miss some Bordeaux. And this sort of happens. I have these cycles of when I'm craving or not craving. And right now, these Bordeaux's are just sitting really, really well. Just loving the structure, loving that dryness. I don't think there's any earthiness in this one. I remember when I first started drinking Bordeaux, there was a very pronounced scorched earth thing that at first was so off-putting to me, I hated them. And then I craved it, to the point where I began to love Bordeaux so much that I put tons of money. I bought a fair bit of the 2005 vintage, and when I bought a lot of them was in 2003, 2004, even in 2005, and bought as many as I could. No, I'm saying that backwards. 2005 vintage, I bought a lot of in 06 and 07, and I guess when it came out. So I bought them, I guess, like en premiere to some degree, where you're buying them without them coming out yet. But I just started craving that scorched earth. Ironically, the 05s, but I had the least amount of scorched earth of any vintage I can remember. The 6s and 7s had a lot more scorched earth. Although one of those vintages in there really was bad. It might have been the 07. I guess what I was trying to get to is that I don't taste it as often. Not sure because it's the ripeness of what's happening out in Bordeaux, or I've just grown accustomed to it and it just blends in to the rest of the wine, and I don't detect it like I used to. I was very sensitive to it in the past. I mean, not so much now. But really good wine, and this thing could go another 10 years. Another 10 years for that price point is awesome. So I did pop one of my 2003 20-year Rieslings, and something bizarre, the cap, this was black. Just the cork was just had this blackness to it, and I wiped it, and like this came off of it. It just a lot of more gross stuff than I've ever seen in my life. Certainly was, didn't smell anything, didn't smell moldy. I cleaned, I took my OSA and I got it out and I cleaned it. Nothing there, no black stuff showing, so I feel like it's totally safe. But what came out of it was this really, really copper amber color, which just tells me this had a little bit of oxidation, not just aging. And I wasn't sure. I was hoping it was going to be drinkable and not corked or so oxidized I couldn't drink it. And it's awesome. it's awesome. I don't. The aroma's coming out. It smells like butterscotch. So normally I don't get the extreme butterscotch, except I have a very, very old Chardonnay, and that's one of my favorite things about super old Chardonnay. That butterscotch. This absolutely has, like, if I didn't know better, I would think this is an aged Chard, not an aged Riesling. There's a chestnut honey and buckwheat honey aroma. Buckwheat honey is really dark, as is chestnut. Chestnut is like a dark brown. Buckwheat honey is almost black. And they both have an aroma of that. And honeys do have various aromas. I got into the world of honey years ago and really discovered some great honeys. And I tried a ton of them. I just wasn't the biggest fan of those darker-ish honeys. I really liked the honeys from thyme, whatever the flowering of the thyme plant is. Some of those were from Greece, but there's a bunch that I really liked. There was one from Tasmania that I loved. Leather, I think it was called Leatherwood. Ugh, that one, oddly enough, it smelled like garbage. Although that aroma kind of, I stopped getting that aroma, thankfully, but the honey tasted delicious. I don't know why I'm talking about honey, except that this kind of reminds me of those two darker honeys. And yeah, there's a butterscotch, and then there's another aroma that I'm trying to put my finger on. It's got this perceived sweetness on the aroma, like a certain candy, besides the butterscotch. You know what? It's caramel. It is. It's some degree of caramel here. I just had a tequila recently, and it was a single barrel. It was aged from 2001 to 2006. I just opened it, and it was in a ceramic bottle. Unfortunately, half the bottle, I think, evaporated. It was a really bad seal. Those bottles were notorious for being leaking type of bottles. It smelled like pure caramel on the nose, and even had a very strong taste. It was an amazing tequila. I am very sad that I didn't drink that sooner. And for spirits don't get better with age. They don't do anything. They remain the same when you bought them as they do years later. Just you might lose some to evaporation, which totally stinks. Wine does evolve, as this wine 20 years ago was probably much lighter colored, more lemon colored, golden. This is so dark. This is the darkest of these wines I've had, and this is so fully developed and oxidized, and it's glorious. Glorious. On the palate, it's still dry. It's still dry. But it's got this perceived level of butterscotch and caramel, which is super cool. So super cool. It's definitely a bit oxidized. I could kind of taste that. But it is a aged white that's had some extra oxygen leak in there. And honestly, I don't really mind it. The finish is nice and long. For 10.5% alcohol wine, this thing's got some great length. Acidity is still there. It still makes my mouth water. It's terrific. I love this wine for the price. And I know I bought them out. So now there'll be 36 left rather than 37 after this bottle. But the bottle variation on these has been unbelievable. I've never bought more of any one bottle of wine in my life except this. There's been some cabs that if I found more of a certain vintage, this one I remember, Liquid Sky, I would absolutely have bought tons of it. For the price and the quality, that wine was insane. It's funny, it tasted like $100 cab, and I paid like 30 something. And I was like, this just tastes like $100. Sure enough, when I looked it up on the internet, there was it couldn't be found anywhere except from this one location, Money Bean with the Winery, and they were $100. It just had that taste to it. It was from Moon Mountain. Never seen it since. I've never even seen that one in my life. I got it in 2 different vintages, two cases. I ripped through it like it was nothing because it was so good, and I just assumed I'd get more, and fortunately not. Gosh, I am really going on tangents, and this is a really long couch video, but 2 exceptional wines, so. It's like another flavor and or aroma I'm just not getting out. It's very much got that rotting banana peel aroma, then, is what I'm thinking. And it's not fresh caramel. I know what it is. It's like burnt caramel. It's like slightly burnt caramel. That's really what it smells like. Very peculiar. Very cool. Gonna enjoy this for sure. Only a few more sips. Well, I still have another half bottle of this, so that'll be awesome. But I'm not gonna have this again until Sunday. So today's Friday. This will get some air in it. I bet you this wine will be singing on Sunday. Singing. I don't know if I'm gonna pair it with anything special. Maybe just some cheese, but so fun to do. Just so, I mean, look, the aromas out of this thing are wild, just dominating the red. But the red is tremendous. A tremendous Bordeaux, a tremendous Riesling out of Germany. Not that I haven't talked about that a zillion times, but this bottle variation, so different than all the others. I feel like I'm drinking an entirely different wine. And a wine that is 20 years, but it's tasting like it's 30 years. Speaking of a 30-year-old wine, I found a port. I haven't had a port in a while. I do like a port once in a while. I found a 1994 vintage port for $70. And yes, it's a lot, but where else are you going to find a wine like that? So I'm going to end up buying it soon. With that, have a good night.